Hello and welcome to Selling with a Robot. I'm your host Shawn, and I'm joined with Irosha as well, my co-host, also founder and CEO of
Hey,
Marketrix. And in today's episode, guys, we have a special guest joining us as well, Poojitha, who is the
Hi,
founder.
Irosha, hi, Sean.
Hi, Poojitha.
hey,
So Poojitha is
very,
the
very nice
founder.
to have you in our show.
Me too.
So Poojitha is the founder of Coaching Runway. So to tell a bit about Coaching Runway, I think Poojitha, I think you can elaborate a bit more on it as well. So I think in the domain of essentially, say you've coached sales teams to different say businesses as well in terms of from motivational aspect, right? And how to really take things forward from there. And also your Poojitha carries a background working for various companies, including Microsoft as well, right? And with special expertise as well in the public sector, right? So in public sector sales. So that is the topic that we would be diving into a bit in detail today, right, in episode 11. So today's episode would be titled Sales Excellence in the Public Sector and Innovative Approaches to Meet Public Sector Needs. So without further ado, Poojitha, so first of all, I'd like to, give the floor to you a bit to kind of introduce yourself and, to kind of shed some light on your background as well.
Okay, thanks, Sean. I think you have done the justice already, given the brief overview about myself. Okay, so basically, I'm the lead coach and the principal coach of Coaching Runway, which is predominantly focused on the business coaching and the leadership aspect, which has been sort of evolving for last 6 years. Stemming from my previous experience, background in sales and the leadership over 2+ decades in different organizations. And my background is mainly in the technology and technology related services. And that has been the passion throughout my career. And I've been enjoying that during that time, and still I'm enjoying keeping that DNA for the rest of my journey in the coaching as well. And as you rightly said, like today's topic, I think we are stemming into the public sector arena, which is a very interesting space for some and not for some as well, because of the
Not,
complexities in
not
the
everyone's cup of tea.
So,
yeah, not, yeah.
I mean, Pooja, that's a very, very interesting sector, right? I mean, like, also, I mean, and I'm very, very curious to know because, like, say, I've been working with you, like, on and off in different things, right? And then we've done, like, sessions similar to this as well before, right? So, and like, personally also, I've learned quite a lot from you, like, with regards of coaching, mentorship, sales, like, leadership and things like that, right? So, now, especially like with regards of public sector, I mean, I think this is a topic that we haven't really had the opportunity to speak on this as well, even though like we've had many conversations, right? So, but what I'd love to know is, Pujita, like what is like, because in my mind, if you really think about a public sector, it really sounds like a complete new like whole landscape, like altogether, right? So why don't you maybe shed some light about like public sector and like how it differs, like when we are dealing with the public sector, especially like from a looking at from a sales standpoint.
Right. Okay. So probably I'll just take a generic view in terms of sort of holistic view in terms of the public sector. So as I mentioned earlier, public sector is not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
Because of the complexities and the long tenure of the sales cycle and the different type of profiles of stakeholders that you need to interact. That this brings a lot of complexities, but also this requires a lot of skills to navigate around this the entire ecosystem. But the most interesting part, if you really look at in the public sector, is if you look at in the worldwide spending in the public sector, is keep on increasing, and they will
Right.
keep on improving as well. I mean, if you look at in Sri Lanka, like currently, the government is very focused in terms of serving citizens better. So it's very similar to, even if you look at a private organization. So government customers are the citizens. So what they want to do
Yeah.
is to connect the citizens and provide that service better, and they want to improve that service. And
And
also by doing that,
you're specifically referring to the public sector spend into technology and IT infrastructure, yeah?
yes. So if you look at around 2022 onwards, it is staggering, and it's keep on increasing, exceeding around $550 billion. So it's keep on
Right.
sort of increasing. This is for software, hardware, IT related
That's
infrastructure,
$550
people.
billion in the US alone or globally?
No, this is just a worldwide generic figure
Right. Right.
in terms of the spending, uh, and it cut across a number of geographies as well,
Right. Right.
comprised of software, hardware, and the related services, people, training. It could be a
Got
number
it.
of things.
Right.
There can be areas which has not captured here as well, but it's keep on improving, because uh, why it is very different from any other sectors is, citizens are demanding. They need a lot of services. They need efficiency. They need things get it done
Yeah.
faster. So government are at a sort of a intense in terms of providing this service to their citizens, and to improve this service, each time. So they need to make this experience better, because that is their vote base end of the day. So they need to make sure their customers are well satisfied, and also that also will contribute to their economy significantly. These better services will, definitely improve to their economy, and that will keep the country's index moving in the upward trend. So, so there's a lot of similarities to private organizations as well, but the entire synergy is very different here.
Okay.
Right. And
Is
also,
it that,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
With it.
sure.
Yeah, Irosha, you go ahead.
So if I'm to ask, Poojitha, like now, say when we think about sales in the public sector, right? Is it that now, say in the private sector, when we are looking at sales, right? Most of the time we are looking at, say, one or two decision makers, right? I mean, like, most of the time we try our best, like how we can go in the private sector, how you can get to the main decision maker. Ideally speaking, how we can, like, take the decision then and there if possible, right? So that's why, like, bypassing all the initial gatekeepers, how we can get to the decision maker as soon as possible. That's what we are targeting, right, in the private sector, right? And, like, even, like, say the ideal target is, okay, how can with one or two maximum pitches, how you can get the deal closed, right? But in the public sector, it's a different dynamic, yeah, because, like, it's not that, like, you go and meet like, the government authority head and, like, directly then and there they give the approval, right? There comes a tender process, right? So I mean, how does this differ? How would this decision making differ in the public sector, Poojitha?
Right. So fundamentally, I think in terms of starting with the number of stakeholders that you need to deal with is could be more than one, definitely. Okay, it could be. I mean, I will not be able to tell exactly the number. It could be 1, 2, 10, 20, 50. It could be. Okay, and also if you look at the government structure, but if you're working with a particular institute, that institute may be reporting to a ministry, and that ministry could be under another regulator. So all these things need to get addressed during what I'm going to talk about next is the account management. As part of selling, that particular account coverage has to be there. So in terms of the breadth of the coverage is much more wider and deeper, especially in the government sector. And also, the other thing is, most of the time, the most interesting part in the government, the public sector is, you probably need to have a proactive approach in terms of selling. It is not the reactive. I mean, not responding to a tender, but prior to that, that you have already gone and plant the seed in terms of solving a particular problem, which is going to benefit that particular institution. So that is where the most interesting part, aspect in the public sector, which is starting from nowhere. So sometimes that particular institution have never thought about solving this problem, and if the magnitude of the problem is bigger, the rewards also going to be much more bigger. So as long as that, from an account management perspective, if you as a public sector engagement, when you look at these things, then the entire journey is really, actually, I would say it's very interesting and exciting. But you need to have the tolerance and the patience to hold it after you plant the seed. Taking through them a particular proof of concept and bringing to a sort of RFP level, and make sure that all the stakeholders are well educated of the solution that you're talking about. And sometimes even you may have to, there's other aspect that you may have to seek for funding, which you need to work with a sort of agency who can bring the funding to that particular project, which is going to be beneficial for that organization. So and during that entire process, you work with a number of key people in different metrics, probably locally, overseas, etc. So you understand the magnitude of
and I think now another thing is also like when you were explaining this whole process, what I was sort of comparing in my mind is when you take in say the context of let's say B2B technology sales in if you're approaching private industries, right? A lot of focus goes into this particular aspect of lead generation, right? How you, let's say, outreach. Sometimes it's on a mass scale as well, right? You would use, let's say, a combination of marketing and sales, right? Your sales and marketing process plays a crucial role in, let's say, your lead generation, lead nurturing, that whole that whole pipeline, and maintaining that pipeline health and all that is a big topic when you take private sector sales, right? So but when you I'm guessing, like, when you compare it with the public sector, it's more or less on an account based approach. How do, let's say, you solve from, if I correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at how can you solve a particular problem for this account, right? Rather than going on a more mass scale approach, that and also you have to put a much more effort into that single account, right? So just a follow-up question on that, Poojitha. Like, if you compare, let's say, in the public sector versus the private sector, when you take lead generation, right, how does lead generation work in the public sector? Like, what does the process look like?
Okay, so I think these are sort of two different sort of views in terms of on the public sector side and the private sector, because as I mean, private sector is a more business oriented. Definitely, they need keep on inquiries need to come to sell their product and services. But if you really look at the public sector, their customers are their citizens. Okay, so their customers are their citizens. So that is the customer base that they are serving. Now, the diversity of this is using the technology, as you rightly said, like AI ML capabilities. How you can provide this service better to them. So this is where all these tools will come in handy into any of these organizations. So, I mean, in terms of providing those services much more faster and speedier, comparative to without having the technology. So, in terms of more than the leads, I think it is the more customer servicing part. what
Yeah.
they can do better using this technology. I mean, I'll be very happy if I have a problem with my license or revenue license or birth certificate. I mean, just go to a chat, bot
And get
and
it
just
sorted
say,
out. Yeah. Yeah.
so just give the birth certificate number. I just need to
Yeah.
get a fresh copy. If I can get that sorted out, I think that's amazing. So these are the technological advancement which can plug in to the existing infrastructure and servicing their citizens better.
Yeah. So now, Pooja, that brings us to our next topic, right? The level of resistance, if you think about it, right? So then now, in government, say in the public sector, if you look at it at each of the step, right? So then in most of the governments, right, you have a lot of, say, unnecessary roles are there, right? And then, I don't know, whether you call them seat warmers or whatever. So then, there's quite a lot of unnecessary roles are there just for the sake of it's not really made for efficiency and it's not optimized for efficiency, I would say, right? And but the approach that you need to take up in the public sector is not really a profit maximizing approach, so that I get that as well. But at the same time, now with AI, what we are trying to do is making things much more efficient, right? So then with that, what's going to come is, I mean, this is sort of similar to with whole now say when you think about when computers came, or the software and things like that came, I'm sure the lot of people in the public sector, they were concerned about their job security and things like that, right? Now with this whole AI era coming in, right, I would say this is going to amplify even further, right? So how do you think, Pujitha, this particular resistance right now, say if we are to propose an AI solution for the public sector, right, which we know that efficiency is going to maximize by improve by another 40 to 50%, right? But it also means that it's going to have a hit on 40% of the job roles, right? So then and that's going to create resistance, right? And so, and in public sector it's not as easy as you are able to let go of 40% of the people tomorrow straight away, right? Just like how Microsoft or whoever the large company would announce, right? So how do you think this resistance can be addressed, right, with with these AI based solutions coming in the public sector?
So I think that particular sort of dilemma is all been there in number of years back. I don't think it has really hit in terms of sort of cut down the jobs significantly, but also there are so many transferable skills in the ecosystem. So these employees can be deployed for different other purposes as well. So that can be sort of look at what is the real impact in a particular organization and country level. And obviously, on a current context like this, when there's so much of brain drain happening, so much of migrations are happening, skills migrations are there, so you probably need a lot of people to do so many other things as well. But if you really look at one area is this citizen services side, but also if you really look at from the policy making side, how does this tools can be really beneficial for a public sector, is I think that we are talking about huge improvements from a policy making side. So where that for my interest, like when I look at public sector, I have few areas which is very much interest for myself. Like one of the areas is education, and the other area is agriculture, in terms of the sort of public sector, and the other area is health, which is very key in terms of public sector operation. I mean, if you look at agriculture, now you see from a policy making side, with the technology, the AI capabilities in terms of climate, weather conditions can be incorporated for harvesting, and which time, which crop need to be harvested, and make it available at a lower cost throughout the country. that could be it's a huge problem solver in terms of a lot of wastage. You see, sometimes watermelons are planted northern part of the country and the southern part of the country, and most of the things get wasted because there is no proper distribution, etc. So these are, on a policy making, these things can be sort of addressed. If you look at the health side, usage of medicines, drugs, if you can bring using the AI ML capabilities and the BI capabilities, policymakers to see, what is the usage of medicines in the country, where we should be having more medicines, and to get better bargaining through imports, etc. So another area to look at. And the other side is education, technology. And probably I think you would have seen that recently, I think the AI is going to get implemented through the school teaching system, so which is a good move in Sri Lanka. So, but on the education side also, one of the words that we used to use in Microsoft, teaching with technology. How to use technology to teach. So all these things are interconnected. So if you really look at the benefits, is more benefits are on the policy making to use this technology, and the rest will be an add-on. And I don't think there will be a huge sort of resistance
coming in. So that is what you mean is, Poojitha, we need to go in the aspect of broader problem solving, right? I think you captured it in a very nice way, because when you look at the public sector, right, entity, right, so then their ultimate customer is the mass public, right? So then how can we serve the public to be better, right? So then when you go in that approach, so I think that's a very good approach to look at it, right? But coming back to sales, Poojitha, so then that's a very good point in terms of the overcoming resistance aspect, right? So then where you speak on the broader picture, and you speak on the public benefit, right? I think that's what you try to sort of articulate over there, right? So I'm curious to know, Poojitha, if we are to get into a bit more of the nitty gritties, right? Say, personally, if we are to ask, say, how did you get into this whole sales into public sector? What was that like, right? So, and what advice maybe that you would have for someone who would maybe want to step into that arena?
Okay. So I think any seller should be in the public sector in terms of their career. That is one of the most interesting area to sort of broaden your knowledge in terms of complexity of the sales and the account management, and really deep selling experience you definitely can absorb from the public sector management. And as I mentioned earlier, it is if you master the sort of disciplines of key account management, that will give such amazing experience for you to sort of navigate through any other complex selling. So when you look at the key account management, is talking about understanding the account better, and understanding the challenges that particular account is experiencing, and how you're going to solve the problem, and what is your sort of roadmap in terms of solving the problem, and who are the stakeholders that you need to manage in terms of convincing. Just like in the private sector, you have a project sponsor, you have the influencers, you have gatekeepers, and you have blockers. All these things, all these stakeholders need to be managed, especially in this complex selling. And also, it's also the most interesting part is you're talking about the future. We are not talking about the past. In the problem solving, you need to see how are you going to anticipate this particular problem, and you have an answer now. And it is not the problems that you are having right now. It is the problems that you are going to face in the future. So this is the most exciting part in aspect in the public
it's more
sector.
forward looking.
Exactly, it is 100% forward looking, and you're talking about something, a technology which is not really tangible or it's really available. It is something you're talking, you're giving a pitch of a framework or sort of a, something, this is how this is going to be a problem. Experience and see. And if you do this, this is the magnitude of the problem you're going to solve, and this is going to convert to this much of results. Isn't it something that you're going to be excited? Is it something that you would love to see? So this is what the most exciting part aspect in the public sector, which is I would encourage uh, anyone who is putting up their career in the sales arena to experience, and you will get into it and see, because I could sort of fabricate it from a sort of a pitch like this, but nothing like you when you really experience it in the public sector selling. And also you actually get so much of knowledge working with the public sector. Their knowledge, how to deal with problems, issues, etc. And when you're a citizen of the country, you also will have a sort of a breadth of knowledge. How difficult is these things, and of course that gives opportunity. Let me go and solve that problem, because technology advocate, definitely I should be able to help them to solve these things.
Correct. I think that's very actually that's a very enlightening perspective, Poojitha, because so I mean right throughout now, up to now, we've been talking specifically on sales, but we've not really looked at this sort of a perspective, right? So as a I mean, we've looked at different innovative approaches, and for example, now in our last episode also we were talking about in sales, how can you be more empathetic, right? And different approaches are there, right? So a new perspective, I like it. As a citizen of the country, how can you really serve? It's a door opener for you to play a role, rather than, let's say, complaining about the problem. How can you fix the problem, right? So
exactly,
I mean, that's a very unique perspective, Poojitha. Yes, Irosha.
So I think Poojitha, so I absolutely love that perspective, right? So and the fact that any salesperson should explore this arena and then see, look into this dynamic and then go about. So very interesting points that we captured as well, right? And I think with the AI revolution that's coming, and how it should be adopted, right? By the public sector, and how we should be sort of driving the sales to the public sector with AI. How that should be done, in that problem solving mindset for the citizens of the country. I think that's mainly the essence that we can look at in terms of driving sales in the public sector. So very, very good point, Poojitha. Thanks.
And also, I think the technology is becoming commoditized in the future. I mean, you see today, we never thought our old parents they will use the most of the features in the mobile phones so swiftly. But today, they are addicted to that, and their primary communication modes, both audio, video, and even entertaining them, using the mobile phones. So this entire thing, with the ecosystem, it has completely sort of changed. I think the technology will definitely add value and improve the productivity in across the board. So I think what need to, I mean, for the future is the skills related to the technology has to get uplifted, especially through the education system, and that innovation has to accelerate, just like you all guys are doing in terms of chatbots and the other related areas, and in a Sri Lankan setup. So I think all these things get welded together. I think technology will not be a difficult, and the public sector will absorb technology much more faster than the private sector, I would say.
Thank you very much. So that was actually very enlightening conversation, Poojitha, and thank you very much for joining in and sharing your expertise as well. Like I said, it's not a topic that we have explored before, and you really brought a unique perspective, I would say, right? And also, for those of you listening in, take Poojitha's advice. Probably try your hands at sales in the public sector as well. So once again, Poojitha, just want to thank you for joining in on our today's episode of Selling with a Robot. It was amazing having you. Thank you very much, Poojitha.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Poojitha.
Shawn.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
And
Irosha.
thank you for everyone else who was watching in. So as you know, we'll be having our next episode of Selling with a Robot every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. PST. So until next time, guys, see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.